Hello, and welcome to Misha After Hours. Oh yeah. Actually, it's morning, and the reason this video is a day late is I goofed on the mic. It's one reason I don't like using mics. The jack wasn't fully plugged in, so the first 10-15 minutes of my recording from last night, you can't really hear anything. So I'm having to re-record the first part. So if this is great, I'm doing a better second take. If this sucks, just know the first take was brilliant and magnificent and would have brought a tear to your eye, and this is the lame next day attempt. No. Misha here, and I promised on the main channel over at Mishaco that Jay and I do that would be doing more of a personal, private commentary about the recent Colt news. To wit, I mean that on September 19th, Colt announced, with a letter signed by their president, CEO, that they would be suspending civilian AR-15 production temporarily to focus on a new government contract. They stated in this letter that they were still pro 2A and that this was a temporary measure. This has been blown way out of proportion. Kind of the first stage was, oh, Colt's no longer making AR-15s. Second stage, Colt's abandoning the 2A community. Third stage, they're no longer making AR-15s. Of course, that's kind of the most radical, but that's how internet news and even some local news gets propagated now. People just read headlines and jump to conclusions. Coffee, guys. Will Colt be back? Well, they say so. They say it'll be 2 months, maybe 3, and they will pick back up. They just need to focus on the contract. They also say that they're still going to do at least one more shipment of guns, building from already existing parts stocks. So here at the store, we're expecting at least one more batch of Colts coming in October. But anyway, for more on that, you can check out the main video on the main Mishaco channel. This is more my personal commentary. Whenever we post a video on Mishaco itself, it tends to either be a joint video between Jay and I, or even if we do individual videos, they're videos that we both agree on and tend to be very factual based as much as possible. This is more opinion based. Jay may or may not agree with me, and this is kind of to a much smaller audience. You guys over here at this personal channel know me better probably and can understand that I'm just talking more like I would to a friend. So what's really going on? Really not a whole lot, frankly. Oh, one other benefit of getting to re-record this first part, I was able to read several comments on our original video. Appreciate it. Everyone's been pretty cool and civil. That's awesome. Thank you guys. One comment I loved was someone referred to how the 2A community gets outraged at all these companies. They called it virtue signaling, which I love. Usually virtue signaling is applied to the liberal side, social justice warriors, SJWs. That's often what's called, oh, they're virtue. But conservatives, the 2A, do the same thing. You know, people got upset at Springfield over political stuff. People got upset at Daniel Defense and Troy over who they hired. People got upset at Smith & Wesson for the lawyer lock they put in back in the 90s. People got upset over Ruger for their decision not to sell high-cap mags. People have been upset at Colt in the past for political decisions. There's really not a single firearms company under the sun that hasn't had shade thrown at it at one point or another. And people tend to go from 0 to 100 in no time. It's just they can't go, well, I like the company, I don't like this decision, that kind of annoys me, but oh well. It's, I fucking hate this company, I'll never buy from them again. Because they did one small decision you didn't agree with. Is that not a little extreme? Or even worse, people who say, oh, I've never bought a Colt and never plan to, and this decision just cements my decision. Your decision was already cemented. Why what Colt does or doesn't do shouldn't affect you in the least. Another thing that kind of bugs me, people say Colts are overpriced. And I really disagree. Because what they're doing is they're comparing apples to oranges. Let's look at Colts. A couple of examples of their most common standard production ones. The AR-15A4. Rifle, 20-inch, government profile, flash hider, bayonet lug, standard, regular rifle handguard, removable carry handle, which is something you really don't see much anymore, and carry handles alone sell for several bucks now. Standard A2 buttstock, which again, they kind of sell for decent money now because not many companies make a military A2 stock anymore. Ambidextrous safety, M16 spec bolt group, comes with one mag. $1,000 or less, okay? Your basic 6920. They have been anywhere from $800 to $1,000 in recent years. It's your basic M4, 16-inch barrel with removable flash hider. Typically they're government profile. There have been a few that have the heavier profile. Bayonet lug, which you really can't use very well because of the longer barrel. Typical plastic handguards. Early ones had a removable carry handle, but more recently they usually have a mag pull rear sight. Standard safety, standard H buffer, standard furniture. Okay. Finally, the newest one, the 6920 SOCOM or US or whatever you want to call it. It's their closest to military they've done. It has a 14.5-inch barrel with a pin and welded on flash hider, bayonet lug, which is actually usable thanks to the shorter barrel. It has a SOCOM profile barrel, meaning it's heavier under the handguards, and has the 203 grenade launcher cuts. It comes with a Knight's Armament quad rail with covers and grip. Instead of a carry handle or a magpul rear sight, it comes with a military Maytech rear sight. Comes with the ambidextrous safety. And instead of an H buffer, it has an H2. And important to some, it also has M4A1 on the lower receiver and US property marks. Not exactly authentic marks, but people like them. I get it. Pretty cool. Those tend to be around the $1,400 range, maybe a little more when they first came out. So we've got, $1,000-ish for the rifle or the standard M4, $1,400 for the little bit of deluxe one. The deluxe one's easy to compare because the only other gun on the market like it is the FN M4 Collector series, which is around $1,500 to $1,600. So more money. And actually, it doesn't quite have a mil-spec barrel, and it's not marked A1. I definitely give the Colt the advantage there. FN also does a A4 type rifle in the Collector series. They do a more standard one. It too is around $900 to $1,000. Their M4 regular guns are anywhere from $800 to $1,000, just like Colts. So I would say FN's pricing is right in there with the Colt. Same goes for Daniel Defense and LMT, if not actually a little more. And those are all solid mid-tier manufacturers. So Colt compared to its contemporaries is kind of right in there. Where does it look cheap? Well, with the low-tier guns. And I'm not saying that to denigrate anything. You have high tier, which Colt is not. They're solidly middle tier, which tends to be duty guns, built to spec but no real flair. Low tier are your budget guns. At the top of that, I would probably say Smith & Wesson with the M&P15, Ruger maybe a little bit below. Then you get into things like the DPMS, the Radical, the Palmetto State, and then a lot of other brands. I think someone left a comment in the main video saying there are 75 AR-15 manufacturers now. So yeah, pick one. These run anywhere from $500 to $800. Okay? Some of them are good guns. Some of them might even look prettier than a Colt, finish-wise. The thing is, these companies really haven't had government contracts. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. I'm just stating a fact that, you know, Ruger hasn't had a government contract, or Radical. They haven't. Meaning that mil-spec isn't really a factor one way or the other. And mil-spec, again, isn't the end-all and be-all. That's not, oh, this gun's mil-spec, therefore it's better or worse or anything. I'm just saying these guns are not mil-spec, almost by definition. They often are also made from a lot of imported parts. What I've noticed with them, they will usually have a pretty good name brand barrel. A lot of them even use FN. But then where are the other parts made? Like the bolt carrier group, the buffer, the furniture, the trigger. Yeah, and I've actually seen a lot of those components fail, sometimes right out of the box on those guns. Now, are they easy to replace? Oh, heck yeah. You can put an H buffer in. You can put a Colt or FN bolt carrier in, no problem, but you're putting money and time into it. Out of the box, a lot of them have, I don't know. You know, again, there's so many makers that it's hard to generalize here. And of course, a lot of guys will buy a receiver, AR-15 lower receiver, for 50 bucks-ish. Then they'll buy a parts kit on sale, Labor Day, for $2.99. They'll assemble them and go, look, I built an AR as good as a Colt for $400. That's subjective. To you, it's as good as a Colt. To someone else, it may not be. What's not subjective, they'll say, it's a mil-spec M4. No, it is not. That is demonstrably not true. Your $400 kit-built AR was not assembled to mil-spec. I promise you. It may work well. You may love it. It may be special to you because you put it together. That's all awesome and great. But it's not an FN. It's not a mil-spec gun. And if you're fine with that, great. You save yourself some money. You don't want or need a Colt. That's awesome. And I'm not saying that sarcastically. That's great. If you're happy with it, and I have too. I've had DPMSs in the past. I was fine with them. They were great. Whatever. Cool. But to compare a Colt or even an FN or Daniel Defense or LMT that costs, let's say, $1,000 to $1,500, just spitting out a number, to a gun that's in the $500 to $800 range, and then say the Colt is overpriced, it's not really comparing apples to apples. They are different guns. I mean, it's just, you know, like, I like Romanian Wassers. I really do. I also like Bulgarian Arsenals. There's a price difference. Is a Wasser as good as an Arsenal? In some respects, yes, it is. But in others, no, it's not. It's kind of a get what you pay for type situation. That's cool. Where I get annoyed is when people practice intellectual dishonesty. They'll look online, usually get like not even the retail price, but like the MSRP, manufacturer's suggested retail price, which is always high for a Colt. Let's say $17.99. Then they'll see what it would cost to build the cheapest AR from a kit, let's say Radical, for $3.99, and they'll go, look how overpriced the Colt is. This gun's just as good as it. No, it's not. You're skewing your results to make your point. You're looking for the cheapest price for the one you want to be cheap, and you're looking for the highest possible price for the one you want to be high. I see this happening a lot, not just with ARs, but a lot of gun pricing. And it does annoy me. If you're going to compare prices, compare them from the same website, or at least similar websites. Don't go everywhere looking for prices, or don't use some out-of-stock price. It's just like, okay, if this one PSA AR was on sale for $4.99 back in May on Memorial Day weekend, but is regularly $599, then it's a $600 gun. You can't go, well, it was $500. No, routinely it's not, because I've seen Colts on sale for $700, but that's not the routine price. That's just, that was a blowout someone was having once. So if you're going to do it, be honest about your price comparisons. And that pretty much takes me to where the mic went working. Well, it didn't really go working. The connection just finally fell out, and so the rest of my rant, which does get more ranty, was recorded, although it's just from the onboard mic on the camera, so that might not be the best quality. I apologize for that, but I'm not going to re-record all of it, but just thought I'd re-record this intro. And since I really have no great way to edit videos, you're going to pick up with me pretty much in the middle of a sentence. Sorry about that, but anyway, the point remains that, hey, this is my personal channel, so, meh. Not like but I wanted to give you a little more from me. And maybe I'll do some more gun commentary vids in the future too. Well, this is Misha, and so I'm going to hand you over to Misha from the past, from about 24 hours ago, and he will take it from there. To that is really unfair. But, you know, I'm not knocking it. If you just want a fun AR, get yourself one of those $500 guns. Awesome sauce. People who buy Colts are a little bit different, and they're just in a different tier. That's why a lot of times you have tiers, you know, high tier, medium tier, low tier. Colt's not a high tier. Colt is decidedly a medium tier, but those cheap ones are considered a low tier. That's not to say they're bad. That's just, they are the cheapest. By definition, that puts them in the low tier. High tiers would be, you know, $1,500, $2,000 guns. But I think people who do this know it in the back of their head, but they're skewing their argument really to their advantage. That's what people do today with internet. They'll find the absolute highest price Colt and then post a link to it, and then the lowest price whatever and post to it. That's intellectual dishonesty. They have to know they're doing it. Well, what about Colts? What are expectations? What's the goods and the bads? Why buy a Colt? Why not buy something else? In a word, there's no good reason to buy a Colt. You know, they don't have the cutting edge technology. Mostly they've been kept back by mil-spec. I mean, why innovate? Why develop new stuff when the government's going to keep buying the old stuff? You know, mil-spec's kind of a two-edged sword. Once it gets locked in, that's how you make stuff, even if a better way's invented years down the road. But Colt, because they're primarily focused on government contracts, sticks to the specs that the government wants. There's no reason to innovate because the government won't do it. And the civilian market is so janky. You know, when Colt finally did introduce an intermediate length gas system gun, it didn't sell great. It was a good gun, but most people who buy Colts want as close to government mil-spec as they can get, military grade. A lot of my customers are veterans that served us over in Afghanistan and Iraq. And when they come back, they say, I want a Colt just like I used over there. Or in some cases, I want an FN just like I used over there. If they want an intermediate gun, they typically build their own, or, you know, go to some other custom house. Now, if people buy Colts, they want as close to military as they can get, and the military is very slow to change and innovate. And really, the M4A1 SOCOM, the 6920, with the pin and welded barrel and the KAC handguard, is just about the most modern gun we have. And yeah, there are the Block 2s, but it's kind of a replica of a Block 1.5 A1. So yeah, not for innovation. Fit and finish. Colts come with a good durable finish, but it's not shiny, it's not terribly even, and it might have a scuff or scratch in it. It's not going to be the best looking finish. Kind of like if you look at a Romanian Wasser, they come with a part finish and it's relatively durable, but it comes in kind of scratched up and chipped up a bit. Colts aren't that bad, but They're not great either because the parts just kind of come out of a big bin and they bang together. So with the finish, there are definitely guns with nicer finishes, even in the lower tier. I would say, for example, Smith & Wesson puts a nicer finish on their M&P 15 than Colt. Is it as durable? Maybe not, but fresh out of the box, it's nicer. In the same tier, I would definitely say Daniel Defense and even FN, although to a slightly lesser degree, have better finishes than Colts. So that fit, Colt's not bad. I've never noticed a whole lot of egregious issues, but they're probably not the absolute most precise, precision-made guns in their same tier. There might be a slightly canted this or a slightly loose, wiggly that. So yeah, the fit and finish is, if I'm being generous, unremarkable. Another big thing that's been tossed up are parts Colt uses. Back in the day, most every Colt part had a C proof on it, yada yada. A lot of parts were made in-house, but never every part, to be fair. But a lot of your metal parts were made in-house. Today, people are upset that a lot of the carriers don't have the C, sometimes the bolts don't have it. Different proofs or lack thereof, and the fact that Colt is outsourcing parts. This is true. Which parts? Well, hard to say because they change it so frequently and they don't admit to it when they do. So, if I tell you, oh, the fire control group's still Colt made, the next day it might not be. Or mine might be and yours may not be. They might, it's, because they just reach into big bins and they pull out parts. So it could be a mix of this. Grab 10 guns and 4 could have C-mark carriers and 6 could not. But, yeah, that's a thing, and that's annoying because people who want these typically want all the Colt markings. And today, you're not going to get it. Now, one thing to point out, the newer barrels will have a cage coat on them, or they should. This is something actually the military specified around 2013. So that is mil-spec. That said, just because it has a cage coat doesn't mean much, because it's been reported by my friend Chris and others that a lot of the barrels are actually showing up as Wilson Combat, which is right over here in Berryville, Arkansas. So, yeah, locals. So it is a fact that some of the barrels now coming out aren't made in-house by Colt. And this isn't just with complete guns. This is, when people buy just quote-unquote Colt barrels from Brownells or somewhere else. So sounds pretty crappy, right? Why buy Colt? Those are the negatives. But as with anything, it's not all negative. There are some reasons still. It's up to you to decide if these are worth it and what you want. 1. Still says Colt on the side. No matter what, it still says Colt's Defense. 2. The newer Colts are made closer to mil-spec than the older ones. If you look at the original SP1, it used a weird and enlarged .320 front pin. It was based on the original 601 pin, but when they went to the captive pin with the 603, the SP1 kept the non-captive pin, but it was enlarged and it was made like a double-headed screw thingamajig. The rear pin was captive and normal, but the front pin was all kinds of weirdness on a SP1, so a military upper and lower couldn't work with a SP1 Colt upper and lower. Yeah, there are adapters, but I've heard mixed results about them, so, caveat emptor. The newer Colts, for the last 10 years plus, have had standard front pins. They're captive, they're .250, fully compatible, no problemos. Keeping on with the lower, Colt went through this weird-ass time where they were using larger-than-spec FCG, Fire Control Group, pins. Yeah, this was done so that a military full-auto trigger pack could not be put in. Luckily, they kind of started this nonsense in the very early 90s, and they carried it on through the early 2000s. Luckily, they stopped this about 10 years ago, too. That was really annoying because you couldn't just, interchange trigger packs. So the Colts made the last decade, including the ones right now, have standard sized fire control group pins. I know that's weird to be talking about as a feature, but yeah. Moving up to the receiver, upper receiver, the bolt carrier. Early on, SP1 bolt carriers had just a little bit removed from the back, so they couldn't trip an auto sear. Well, as time went on through the 70s and 80s, they cut more and more off the back of the bolt carrier, to the point in the early 90s when they took the entire bottom off the back of the carrier. They also notched the front, where the firing pin goes at the rear, for several years, where the hammer would hang up on it, because they would also notch the hammer to hang up on the carrier. This was done to prevent slam firing and out of battery discharges, because the auto sear also doubled as an out of battery safety. So they actually did this as a kind of safety feature, but it's still representative of a semi-auto carrier. And they also did it so people trying to make illegal mods to full auto wouldn't have very good success. So they really started modifying the bolt carriers in the 80s and 90s. Very annoying. To go along with that, for a time they put a little key or a little finger in the lower that would only let that carrier fit in there. If you try to put in an M16 carrier, that little key would not allow it. It stuck up. Now, I've seen that you could just shave it off legally, and physically it was easy to do, but it was there and annoying. Well, kind of along the same time, they quit doing this finally. About 2007, 2008, they just started putting in regular military bolt groups. From the bolt, which had an MP test on it, to the carrier, which was just full on the back, wasn't notched, wasn't cut back, had a completely military staked key, and they did away with that stupid finger in the lower. There's still a kind of a web in the bottom of an AR-15 lower from Colt that would be where the auto sear would go, but the finger's gone. And to be fair, if you're a post-dealer sample and it's legal for you to modify to full auto, all you need to do is just take a mill and just mill out that pocket there, and a auto sear could be put in. So it's not a big deal. But for a civilian, there's no way you can do this legally anyway, so it shouldn't matter to you, because don't make illegal machine guns, kids. They frown on that. You may not like the law, I may even agree with you, but don't break the law, because it's super serious, and you will go to jail and get a new buddy for up to 10 years. I had a friend who actually did that time. It's not fun. Don't do it. Anyway, public safety announcement there, PSA. So there's that. The newer Colts are more mil-spec in several ways than the older Colts. Also, they still have magnetic particle tested barrels and bolt heads. Again, this is of now. Now, it could be reported tomorrow that, oh, Colts shipping out in September, October. I don't know. But as of right now, all the Colts I've had come in still have MP tested parts. And what's neat about Colt, they MP test all their parts, whereas most other companies only batch test. They might make 10 or even 100 bolt heads and take one at random out to magnetic particle test. Colt does all of them. And this is a great thing to do, because it will uncover any hidden flaws that could lead to stress fractures or cracking in the future. It's not foolproof, but it's really a good thing to know that there's no major things just waiting to go wrong. Most of your cheaper guns would never do this. So you do get a little bit more assuredness there. And that's where I have to really say there are some good things about Colt. The parts have still been tested to military standards to ensure at least a basic level of durability. So you typically do not hear of Colts failing or having broken parts. They typically are extremely durable and dependable. Colts don't jam. I know people have talked about, they've read online about diminishing quality control and all that with Colts. The thing is, that tends to be in the fit and finish or just markings department. Even today, you still don't read about Colts having jamming problems. Now, I'm not saying there aren't jam Colts out there. Anything that's mass produced, there are going to be lemons. I've seen it with HKs, even Swiss SIGs have lemons. But by and large, 99% of Colts out there work great and will work great for a long time. With the cheaper brands, honestly, that number goes way down. They tend to be more ammo sensitive, or they need minor parts replaced. For example, I see a lot of times they need a different buffer put in them. A lot of them don't even come with an H buffer, much less an H2. They come with just a standard weight Car 15 buffer. Also, sometimes the fire control group or firing pin or bolt head needs to be changed out. And a lot of your cheaper manufacturers still put AR-15 semi-auto only cutback bolt group, or bolt carriers in their guns. I've always thought having the full weight M16 carrier to, work with the system was a great idea, because a true AR-15 is tuned for a certain weight. And when you start cutting back to make it a semi-auto, you are taking ounces out of that system. It's a very small thing, probably doesn't matter, but it's a bit of an old tale that I grew up with, and I like seeing an M16 carrier in my guns, and a lot of the cheaper ones don't do that. Makes me happy, so leave me alone. And this is something I really can't convey in a video, but if you've ever shot a Colt 6920 and then shot a DPMS or even Smith & Wesson M&P 15, there's just something about how a Colt works that's different. From initially pulling back the charging handle, letting the bolt go home, feeling it go home, it's smoother in a weird way that's really hard to quantify, but it just moves very smoothly. No grit, no crud. Then the triggers, they're still mil-spec, but I don't know, when you go to pull them, I think the best thing I say about Colt triggers, they're consistent. Whereas with some other triggers, third party, no names, they seem to be kind of unpredictable. Sometimes gritty, sometimes too light, sometimes too heavy. Colt triggers seem to be very right on the nose every time. You know what you're going to get. And predictability is good. You know exactly how much force to apply to make it go boom. And they just, when it comes to like recoil and stuff, they tend to have very smooth cycling, which translates to less vibration and translates to less felt recoil. Now part of this is, again, they use H or H2 buffers. That helps. But I think a part of it is just how they're made. Everything is made to the proper density. Everything, it's tight enough to feel good, but also loose enough to work without resistance. Because if you get an AR and the upper and lower are just rock solid tight together, unless your bolt carrier is just lined up perfectly, there's going to be a little bit of resistance or scraping as things wear in. But if the upper and lower have a little bit of jiggle, a little bit of play, parts can kind of find their groove and flex with each other. Even high-end makers, again, like SIG or Sand in Switzerland, intentionally leave a little play in their upper and lower for this reason alone. It's just kind of how mil-spec guns work. There are a lot of other little small things. For example, you get a Colt, you know that the buttstock, specifically the receiver extension, the castle nut will be staked in place as it should. Also, the carrier key will be properly staked in place as it should be. I've seen a lot of carrier keys from other manufacturers that have very lazy staking, just one or two per screw, or sometimes not even any. And that's not a screw you want to come out. In general, at least in my experience with my Colts, I can trust that all the parts are done right. Everything is put in there right. Like if I need to remove a buttstock from an A4 or a pistol grip, I usually have to dog down that screwdriver pretty tight the first time, because usually all the screws are nicely driven in. even a little bit steak sometimes it feels like, or at least have a washer behind them. The parts are just assembled right to feel quality. And by quality, I don't mean looking nice. I mean, it's a service gun that if you throw in the trunk of your patrol car, if you're an officer, you know you can pull it out and it's going to work. Nothing's going to rattle loose or have broken or have a small crack that may fail at the wrong time on you. So why buy a Colt? If you're wanting a pretty gun, if you're wanting a target gun with the best accuracy, if you're wanting a gun with the newest, latest widgets and features, don't buy a Colt. You'll be disappointed. If you want a gun that's dependable, that maybe doesn't look perfect out of the box, already has some scratches, which I don't mind because we shoot our guns, and if you take a gun to the range, you are going to put scratches on it. It's kind of like buying a new truck. The first scratch you put drives you crazy. But if you buy a truck and it's already got a couple of scratches on it, maybe secondhand or like a demo from the lot, it's already got a few scratches, so when you put a few of your own on there, it doesn't drive you nuts. At least that's kind of how I feel. You might feel differently. So I kind of don't mind that Colts don't come in with perfect finishes, because after a couple of range trips, no AR is going to have perfect finish, no matter what. And again, in my experience, and I've been shooting Colts my entire life. I grew up with my dad's SP1. I've had multiple at 6920s, a couple of AR-15A4s, several 9mm of mine and my dad's. They just work, and they keep working. And we've never really had to replace parts. It's a great gun to take out for people who've heard, oh, the AR-15 jams and the AK is great. Take them out with the Colt AR, and they'll see that they don't jam. And that's another thing. I've never noticed ammo sensitivity with my Colts. It can be, high-end 77 grain Black Hills, or, military spec, 62 grain, what have you. Or it can be brass-cased import ammo, like Golden Tiger. Or it can even be steel-cased 55 grain ammo, like Wolf or, Brown Bear. It just eats them. Whereas other ARs, we've had trouble, especially with this cheap steel case stuff. So honestly, if you like shooting cheap ammo, Colts are really good about that. We've never had trouble. And don't worry, you won't hurt your AR by shooting steel out of it. Lord, no. Not at all. We talk about that in our most recent Q&A, so. This is what I often have told customers. If you want a show pony, Colts aren't for you. If you want a war horse, Colts might be what you're looking for, because they build guns for duty, for service. They don't care a whole lot about the civilian market, even today. Their primary thought is for military, law enforcement, government contractors. So when they build a civilian gun, they're going to build it to those same standards. And to be fair, most of my civilian customers who buy Colts, that's exactly what they want. As I said earlier, a lot of them are retired military, so they just want a gun that looks like what they had. A lot of them are also law enforcement that are going to beat the tar out of their guns anyway. And still others just like to hang it on the wall, but have something emblematic of what might have been issued in, the Gulf War. That's why you might want a Colt. I still like them. I don't think they're overpriced. I think at most they might have a 10% premium. But I'm very choosy about the Colts. I have. I've never just bought every model they have, because a lot of their models, especially like their match targets, don't interest me. I like the SP1 because A, it's as close as you're going to get to like a Colt 602. B, I grew up shooting one. I never really messed much with their A2 guns because it's so hard to find one that's made to M16 A2 spec. So what I did there, I got a Colt upper, brand new, or not brand new, but new old stock. And then I just put it on I think it was an A4 type lower, some Colt lower. I just built my own. Ditto for the M16A1, I bought one of those National Guard, I think they were National Guard, they might have been police uppers that were available, about 20 years ago. First I just put it on like an Aero Precision A2 lower, but that bugged me, so then I got a Nodak A1 lower, put it on that, very happy with it, had it for a long time. So since Colt didn't make a good M16A2 or M16A1 clone, at that time I was fine building one on a different receiver. Ditto for my Colt 9mm DOE, which I built as a pistol on a Rock River lower, because Colt doesn't do pistol lowers. And Colt M16 LMG, one of my favorites, it's one of the uppers that CDNN had around 1999. I actually got a Colt H-bar lower from around the same time period that had pretty close matching finish to the upper. And so I dropped the M16 LMG upper on a Colt A2 H-bar lower. So kind of like with my A2 gun, it's all Colt, but one I tossed together my own self. But that's what I did there. But then Colt released the M4 6920. I've gone through several iterations. What I have now, which is the closest I can do to mil-spec, I've got a 6921, which is their SBR version. It's a 14.5 inch government profile barrel, and I have it kind of set up as a late 90s, early 2000s gun with the plastic handguard, standard stock, carry handle. It's not an SBR now. It is actually, I pin and welded the flash hider on, so I'm not going to do an SBR for an inch and a half. Actually, it ends up like a quarter inch because of the flash hider, but I never put suppressors on it. So that's what I did there. I found the 6921 is the closest I can get to a standard M4. And then the 6920 SOCOM with the short 14.5 inch barrel is definitely the closest I can get to a M4A1. And having the U.S. property mark on the lower is just gravy. That's what I've done there. And the AR-15A4. Yes, Chris is right. There are some things like having the M4 feed ramps that are annoying. I wish they wouldn't do that. That said, for the money, under $1,000-ish, I do like that it comes with it has that classic 1980s look. It could really pass for an A2 except for the removable carry handle and the ambi lower safety. And it does have an M16 bolt carrier in it, standard military stock. Pretty cool, and it says AR-15A4, which sounds all like M16A4. About as close as you're going to get there. What I did to mine, as you saw in several videos, I put a KAC handguard on it, put a Harris bipod foregrip, put a fake laser designator, put a fake ACOG, because hell if I'm going to pay real ACOG money when I can't even see it. So I put that on, put a real Maytech rear sight, put a U.S. Marine single cell mag pouch across the stock that I actually picked up at our local Army surplus store. Pretty cool. And yeah, it's not 100%, but it's dang close to a M16A4 USMC. And it really didn't cost me much money at all. The cat handguard I bought as a blim for like $100. Everything I did to it, including the fake optic, I probably have $1,200 in. And I'm sorry, I don't consider that overpriced. FN does have their M16A4 collector series gun that kind of comes already set up that way. And they're at least $1,500. So I feel like I got a Colt and I saved a little money while doing it. And I got to do it myself a little bit. And it's always fun when you put an hour or so of work and do your own guns. And for that, I think it's neat. And all these guns have been 100% reliable. Now, as far as Colt as a company, oh my God, they could give a master class on how not to run a company. I can't even, this video is going long enough, I can't even get into all the poor decisions they make. So what I'll do is I'll just tell you the good decisions they've made over the last 10 years. That'll be a much shorter list. So here goes. Number 1. So yeah, those were the good reasons that Colt's been around. Really, they made it just... Their name still holds weight. They still make a good product. But they've never really listened to what the consumer wants. I'm really surprised they did the M4A1 SOCOM. That's probably the first time, being serious, they've really delivered what people wanted. And they sold, and they are still selling like hotcakes. Ditto for the A4. That was the first rifle they've really done in the military line. They've done lots of matched target rifles, but that was the first government profile, flash hider, bayonet lug, carry handle that they've done really since the 90s, and it has sold very well, and I've had a lot of extremely happy customers with it. But despite that, they've never done things that they really could have that wouldn't have cost them much money to do and would have sold very well. I think, and I think a lot of people would agree, if they would do a Mark 18 pistol, just like Daniel Defense has done, they would do extremely well. They could also do a 9mm AR pistol. I'm thinking something like the old DOE, Department of Energy guns, with the 7-inch barrel and the really cool front side handguard. But if they want to go modern, that's cool too. But, you know, a 9mm type of some... They would do really well with that kind of stuff. They did do the retro guns. Well, they did them sort of, and this is probably my last talking point. They announced an M16A1 and an XM170-72. It looked like for a while they weren't going to come out, but they finally have. And they really suck, in my opinion. We've done videos on both. Make your own decisions. I know people that own them that are thrilled. First off, and most apparent, the price. They're anywhere from $2,400 to $2,600, and that's not a joke. And they just come in a typical Colt box, 1 mag, sling, nothing special, no Pelican case, just, you know. But the killer is, they're not even built in-house by Colt. They're subcontracted out, and Colt is just putting their name on them. They don't have all the proper markings. The lowers are actually marked up pretty damn great. I wish they just sold the lowers, because they have the Colt row mark and the right name. They even have a serial that kind of looks like a military-looking serial. Pretty great. But the barrels really, really drop the ball. They don't have the MP marking. I've heard of some people getting them with MPs, but most people I've talked to, no MP. They don't have the 12 for the 1 in 12 twist where it should be. The barrels are not marked properly. On top of that, they have the wrong bolt carriers in them. The XM170-72 we had a chrome bolt carrier, not right for that gun, whereas the M16A1 we got had a modern M4 bolt carrier in it. The hand guards were not original, you could tell. It's just, the devil's in the details. If they were charging, like their competition, Troy, Brownells, $1,200, definitely, I think we'd all let these small things slide. But, if you're paying $2,400 plus for a retro gun, it has to be picture perfect. Because the extra money has to be going somewhere. And it's just not with the Colts. And the fact that they're not even made in-house by Colt is just why. That's why both Jay and I have just bought Troy's and Brownells. A lot better value. And honestly, they've gotten closer to original than Colt. For example, the Troy XM177 in Gauss, they have a 4.3-inch moderator pinned permanently onto a 12-inch barrel. That's to get out to 16 inches. So the barrel's only about half an inch longer than original. Pretty cool. What did Colt do? They used a 14.5-inch barrel with a slip-over XM type moderator and pinned it on. So it has a longer barrel with a slip-over moderator. The thing is, yeah, you get a couple extra inches of barrel. That's neat. But at the same time, you get several ounces more in weight. And what's so cool about those early carbines is how light they are. So you pick up a Troy or a Brownells and you pick up a Colt, the Troy or Brownells is noticeably lighter. And it being at the muzzle end, it doesn't take many ounces to really be apparent. Anyway, we don't like them. That's just a personal thing, but huge misstep. And horrible timing, too. I mean, if Colt had at least released the retro guns 10 years ago, they wouldn't have had the competition from 2 other good companies. But they decided to release them after Troy and right around the same time as Brownells. Great, guys. Brilliant. Brilliant! And, of course, Colt's attitude has alienated a lot of people. Yeah. I think that's where I'll end. I might do another video later talking more about the 2A community at large, because I really wanted to get into that, but I kind of got on a Colt rant. Look, if you don't like Colts, if you don't have any interest or they're boring to you, that I totally understand. I really do. And I'm not saying that sarcastically. I get why someone would not give a flip about Colt. If you like Colt, even knowing their issues, I get that too. I tend to kind of share your opinion. You know, if you're going to buy a Colt, just embrace the shortcomings and move on with your life. What I don't understand are the people who don't buy Colts, never have intended to buy Colts, who are on the internet bitching and fucking moaning about something that doesn't impact them. You're just whining like little bitches to hear yourself whine. You're pathetic. Do you not have real problems in your life? Is your life so shallow and empty? This is the biggest thing. Go out and get laid. Or have a kid. Have a fulfilling job. I'm sorry if your life is that unfulfilling, but don't be some, triggered weird person on the internet who virtue signals over the latest quote-unquote scandal. Jesus Christ. I was born blind. Lots of people are born with huge disabilities. Those are real things in life. Those are real issues. And you know what? We don't whine about them. We get on with our life. What some company in Connecticut does, or Illinois, that's not a real issue to you. The worst thing, just don't buy their products anymore. Move on. If you want to do something real, when's the last time you wrote or called your congressman? When's the last time you actually stopped to investigate a story instead of just reading the headline on, I don't know what, Yahoo News or Fox News or CNN, a 5-minute blurb? Research before complaining. But what fun would that be? Because actually with most of the stuff when you research it, it's not half as bad as the headline makes it out to be. And that's not fun, is it? Most of you out there, I have a great deal of respect for. You're great supporters. But the people who just are contrarians, who just disagree for the sake of disagreeing and call people names, you're just sad. Now, I'm not saying disagreeing is sad. I actually like debate. I like disagreeing, over a beer, with friends. It's actually a great way to spend an evening, especially arguing about silly stuff like Star Trek versus Star Wars, or even serious stuff like political issues. But, keeping it friendly. But getting online and calling someone a cuck, or a pussy, or threatening to kill people or start a war, what are you? I mean, would you say this to people's faces in real life? I often wonder that about YouTube comments. Would they say this to people's faces in real life? Most of them, I doubt it. But there's something about being hidden behind a screen that emboldens people. I first got internet, AOL, in 1993. And normal internet around 96, I guess. I've been on the internet a long time. I've gone through the chat, the bulletin boards where you actually dialed into them. We had a local one. I can almost remember the name. It's like ScottNet or something. But then the chat rooms, and then I remember virtual chat was out. MSN did, or Microsoft MS did virtual chat, and then I used ICQ and AOL Instant Messenger, AIM, and then there was MSN, which I used briefly. By the time Facebook came around, I was pretty much done. I'd been through all the internet drama enough, so that's why I don't engage there. And maybe that's just it. I've seen it around and around and around. But yeah, Colt's not something to get worked up over. They're doing what a normal company would do. And if you feel they're betraying the Second Amendment, what's new? They've, from the very beginning, erred on the side of caution, because you know what? They don't make much money off the civilian market. They make money off the government. And if the government's nodding towards more gun control, they're going to appease them just as any business would to appease a customer to not lose their business. And right now, Colt doesn't want to lose any business to the government because FN will just swoop in and take over. Colt, I think, is on borrowed time. Every month that goes by and they haven't shut their doors, I'm actually amazed. But I think the name won't be forever because the name has cachet. Someone will buy the name when it's worth nothing except that, because that's about all Colt has left. They don't have a big pattern room with all the old stuff. They don't really have any modern innovations. All their blueprints, all their patents are on old stuff. That's all they really have of value. A lot of the old machinery and parts are gone. All the old employees are gone. The factory hasn't been modernized and updated in who knows how long. All Colt has left is its name and a few aging, yellowing patents. Copyrights. I actually think FN would be a good one to buy them out, because right now companies like FN, when they produce an M4, they have to still pay a royalty to Colt. Would be smart for FN if they could just to buy Colt. That way they don't ever have to pay a royalty anymore. And they probably could actually help them upgrade, and then FN could start producing guns using the TDP, which Colt does still own. But there you go. I promised you a little more after hours with me. A little more opinion oriented. Hope this satisfies. Somehow doing a black box video. Black for death seems appropriate for Colt too. Or black for Black Rifle if you wish. But appreciate you tuning in. Feel free to discuss below. I think on this private channel, it'll just be the guys who know me and you know kind of where I'm coming from on this. It's hard because and that's just me. I can't just categorically love or hate things. I tend to be somewhere on a spectrum. And with Colt, I hate the company. It's sad to see such potential flushed down the toilet repeatedly. On the other hand, I can't just totally dismiss them, because just about the time I'm ready to give up on them, they'll put something good out like the A4, and then a couple of years later something good like the SOCOM. So they put out just enough to keep me strung along and interested. But yeah, they are Colt guys, and they're just doing what Colt does. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna go grab a bite. Maybe a beer. Maybe you should do the same. I appreciate it. This is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon. Next time.